My girlfriend screamed, "Your mother is a witch, it's her or me." I chose my mom. 6 months later, mom won the lottery and paid off my student loans. My ex showed up crying about reconciliation. Mom answered the door and said, "The witch says no." We laughed until she left. Hey Reddit, my ex-girlfriend gave me an ultimatum between her and my mother. I chose my mom. 6 months later, karma delivered the most beautiful payback I've ever witnessed. Buckle up for this wild ride. I'm 28 male, a junior high math teacher in a small town outside Portland. Been teaching for 4 years now. Love the job even though it doesn't pay much. The kids keep me young, and there's something deeply satisfying about watching a student finally understand algebra after weeks of struggling. My salary covers rent, groceries, and my beat-up Honda Civic, but between my student loans and living expenses, I'm basically living paycheck to paycheck. My student debt was crushing. About $47,000 for my teaching degree and master's program. The monthly payments were $380, which might not sound like much, but when you're making $41,000 a year in Oregon, that's a significant chunk. I'd been aggressively paying them down, throwing every spare dollar at the principal, but progress was slow. I live in a modest 2-bedroom apartment about 10 minutes from both the school and my mom's house. The second bedroom serves as my office, where I grade papers and plan lessons. It's not fancy, but it's mine, and I take pride in keeping it clean and organized. My students sometimes joke that my apartment probably looks like my classroom. They're not wrong. My mother, Linda, 54 female, is what you might call an eccentric soul. She's been into alternative spirituality for as long as I can remember. Crystals, tarot cards, herbs, energy healing, the whole 9 yards. She's not some crazy cat lady stirring cauldrons. She's actually a registered nurse who works at the local hospital. Smart, practical, and grounded, but she also happens to believe in moon phases and keeps sage bundles around her house. Mom raised me alone after my dad bailed when I was 7. She worked double shifts at the hospital to keep us afloat, helped me with homework every night, and never missed a single one of my baseball games. She taught me to cook, do laundry, manage money, and treat people with respect. When I graduated college, she cried harder than I did. When I got my first teaching job, she bought me a briefcase and said, "I'm so proud of the man you've become." The woman is literally a saint who happens to own some crystals. Her house is this cozy little craftsman she bought 15 years ago. She's transformed it into what can only be described as a spiritual sanctuary. Plants everywhere, wind chimes on the porch, a small garden where she grows herbs, and yes, crystals on various windowsills. The place always smells like lavender or sage, and somehow you always feel calmer after spending time there. She doesn't push her beliefs on anyone. When patients ask about her crystal necklace, she just smiles and says it makes her feel centered. When neighbors see her burning sage in the backyard, she waves and mentions she's clearing the energy. Live and let live, that's her motto. My girlfriend Elena, 26 female, and I had been dating for about 18 months. Met her at a coffee shop downtown where she worked as a barista while finishing her marketing degree online. Elena was gorgeous. Long dark hair, bright green eyes, the kind of smile that could light up a room. She was also funny, ambitious, and seemed to genuinely care about my teaching career. For the first year, things were great. Elena would come to school events, help me grade papers sometimes, and even volunteered to help with the school's fundraising carnival. She got along with my colleagues and seemed to understand that teachers don't make much money, but find fulfillment in other ways. The problem started when Elena graduated and got a job at a marketing firm in Portland. Suddenly, she was making $52,000 a year, more than me, and her whole perspective shifted. She started making comments about my lack of ambition and suggesting I should consider more lucrative career paths. When I explained that I loved teaching and found it meaningful, she'd roll her eyes and mutter about settling for mediocrity. But the real issue was my mom. At first, Elena seemed charmed by my mother's quirky spirituality. She'd smile politely when Mom offered to read her tarot cards or suggest crystals for stress relief. Mom, always welcoming, included Elena in our Sunday dinners and holiday traditions. She even gave Elena a beautiful rose quartz necklace for her birthday, explaining that it promoted self-love and emotional healing. Elena wore the necklace exactly once. The shift began subtly. Elena would make little comments about my mom's weird hobbies, or suggest that spending so much time at her house was codependent. When I'd mentioned stopping by Mom's after work, Elena would sigh dramatically and ask if I was ever going to cut the umbilical cord. Then she started getting more direct. "Your mom is sweet, but don't you think the crystal thing is a little much?" she'd say. "I mean, she's a nurse. Shouldn't she believe in actual science? I tried explaining that Mom's spiritual practices weren't anti-science. They were complementary to her medical knowledge. Mom never suggested crystals instead of medicine. She used both. But Elena wasn't interested in nuance. The complaints escalated. My mom was too involved in my life. Her house had weird energy. The crystals were embarrassing when Elena's new work friends came over. Mom's interest in astrology was childish superstition that reflected poorly on our family's intelligence. I just think you need to establish some boundaries, Elena would say. Successful people don't cling to their mothers. What really bothered me was how Elena treated my mom during visits. She'd sit on her phone while Mom tried to make conversation. She'd decline Mom's offers of herbal tea with visible disgust. When Mom mentioned anything spiritual, Elena would exchange eye rolls with me like we were sharing some inside joke about the crazy old lady. My mom, bless her heart, kept trying. She'd ask Elena about work, compliment her outfits, offer advice about career challenges. Mom never said a negative word about Elena to me, but I could see the hurt in her eyes when Elena was dismissive or rude. The breaking point came during Thanksgiving. Mom had spent 2 days preparing her traditional feast: turkey, stuffing, homemade cranberry sauce, 3 different pies. She decorated the house with autumn leaves and set the table with her good china. This was our tradition for 21 years, just me and Mom, and she was excited to include Elena in our family celebration. Elena showed up an hour late, claiming work had run over, even though she'd been posting Instagram stories from a nail salon. She barely acknowledged the food Mom had prepared, picking at her plate while scrolling through her phone. When Mom brought out dessert, she also presented Elena with a small wrapped gift, a beautiful handmade journal bound in leather, with Elena's initials embossed on the cover. "I thought you might like this for planning your marketing campaigns," Mom said warmly. "I know how important your career is to you." Elena unwrapped it with obvious reluctance, glanced at it dismissively, and said, "Oh, thanks. It's very rustic. Like it was some piece of junk from a gas station instead of a thoughtful, personalized gift that Mom had probably spent weeks selecting and customizing." Mom's face fell, but she recovered quickly. "I just thought..." "It's fine," Elena interrupted, already putting it aside. "I mostly use digital planning tools anyway." I should have said something right then. Should have called out Elena's rudeness and defended my mother. Instead, I sat there like a coward, watching my mom's excitement deflate as Elena dismissed her thoughtful gesture. After dinner, while Mom was in the kitchen cleaning up, Elena pulled me aside. "We need to talk about your mother," she said in a low voice. "What about her?" "She's too much, Marcus. The crystals, the sage burning, the tarot cards, it's all very strange. And she's way too involved in your life. You're almost 30 years old. She made us a beautiful dinner and gave you a thoughtful gift. What exactly is the problem?" Elena's eyes flashed. "The problem is that she's holding you back. You'll never grow as a person if you keep running home to Mommy every time you need advice. And honestly, the witch stuff is embarrassing. What am I supposed to tell my colleagues when they ask about your family? Witch stuff? Come on, Marcus. Look around. The house smells like incense. There are crystals everywhere. She literally reads tarot cards. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck..." I felt my temper rising. "My mother is a registered nurse who worked her ass off to raise me. She deserves respect, not ridicule." "I'm not ridiculing her. I'm trying to help you see that this relationship is unhealthy. You need to choose what's more important. Having a successful future with me, or staying tied to your mother's apron strings." That conversation haunted me for weeks. Elena's criticism of my mom became a constant background noise in our relationship. Every time I mentioned visiting Mom, Elena would make some comment about healthy boundaries. When Mom called to check on me after a tough day at school, Elena would roll her eyes and mutter about emotional incest. The worst part was how Elena's attitude was affecting my relationship with my mom. I found myself making excuses to avoid Sunday dinners. I'd decline Mom's invitations to movies or farmers markets, worried about Elena's reaction. I was allowing my girlfriend to drive a wedge between me and the woman who'd sacrificed everything for me. Mom noticed, of course. She's perceptive that way. But instead of confronting me, she just quietly adjusted. She stopped calling as often, stopped extending invitations, stopped sharing the little details of her day that she used to tell me about. I could see her pulling back to avoid causing problems in my relationship, and it broke my heart. Things came to a head on a rainy Tuesday in February. I'd had a brutal day at school. 2 parent conferences that went badly, a fight between students in my classroom, and a migraine that felt like someone was driving nails into my skull. All I wanted was to go home, take some ibuprofen, and maybe call my mom for some sympathetic words. Elena was already at my apartment when I got home. sitting at my kitchen table with her laptop open and papers spread everywhere. She was working on some big presentation for her marketing firm. Stress levels clearly elevated. "Rough day?" she asked, barely looking up from her screen. "The worst. Think I'm getting sick too." I opened the cabinet where I kept my medicines, looking for something stronger than regular Tylenol. "Maybe you should call your mommy," Elena said with obvious sarcasm. "I'm sure she has some magical crystals that can cure headaches." Something in her tone just hit me wrong. You know what? Maybe I will call her. She actually listens when I talk about my job instead of acting like it's beneath her. Elena's head snapped up. "Excuse me? You heard me. I had a terrible day. And instead of offering support, you're making jokes about my mother." "I'm making jokes because it's ridiculous, Marcus. You're a grown man who runs to his mommy every time life gets difficult. I don't run to anyone. I have a close relationship with my mother, and I'm not apologizing for that." Elena slammed her laptop closed. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. You prioritize her over everything else. Over me, over your career, over your future. How exactly do I prioritize her over my career? You could be making twice as much money if you moved to Portland and worked in corporate training. But no, you want to stay here and teach middle school math so you can be close to mommy. I stay here because I love my job and I'm good at it. Not everything is about money, Elena. Easy to say when someone else is paying your bills." That stopped me cold. What's that supposed to mean? It means your mother is subsidizing your Peter Pan lifestyle. You think I don't know she helps you with expenses? The groceries that magically appear in your fridge? The student loan payments that somehow get made when you're short on cash? I stared at her. Mom did help sometimes. Bringing groceries when she knew I was stretched thin, slipping me a 20 when I mentioned being broke before payday. But she was my mother. That's what mothers do. So what if she does? She wants to help. She wants to keep you dependent on her. And you're too blind to see it. Elena stood up, pacing now, building momentum like she'd been rehearsing this speech. Your mother is manipulative, Marcus. She uses guilt and money to keep you under her thumb. The whole spiritual act is just another way to maintain control, making everyone think she's this wise, mystical woman, when really she's just a possessive mother who can't let go. You're out of line. Am I? When's the last time you made a major decision without consulting her? When's the last time you had a girlfriend she didn't try to sabotage? My mother has never sabotaged any of my relationships. Really? What about Jessica? What about Sarah? Somehow every girl you date ends up feeling unwelcome around your precious mother. Jessica and Sarah were brief relationships from years ago, both of which ended for reasons that had nothing to do with my mom. But Elena was rewriting history to fit her narrative. You want to know why your relationships don't work? Elena continued. Because you're emotionally married to your mother. There's no room for anyone else. That's insane. Is it? You spend more time at her house than mine. You call her every day. You ask her opinion about everything from what car to buy to what groceries to get. You're nearly 30 years old and you're still playing house with mommy. The volume was escalating. My neighbors were going to hear this fight through the thin apartment walls. My mother raised me alone and sacrificed everything for me. I'm not going to apologize for loving her or wanting to spend time with her. Then you're going to end up alone with her forever. Because no woman worth having is going to compete with your mother for your attention. Elena picked up her laptop and papers, shoving them into her bag with sharp, angry movements. I'm done, Marcus. I've tried to be patient, tried to help you see reason, but you're choosing to stay stuck in this weird, codependent relationship instead of growing up and building a life with me. Where are you going? Home. I need space to think about whether this relationship has a future. She paused at the door, bag slung over her shoulder, eyes blazing with frustration and hurt. When you're ready to be an adult and put our relationship first, call me. But I'm not going to keep competing with your mother for your affection. It's humiliating. The door slammed behind her, leaving me alone in my apartment with a pounding headache and a heart full of confusion. I called in sick the next day and spent the morning walking around the neighborhood, trying to process what had happened. Was Elena right? Was my relationship with my mom unhealthy? Was I really choosing her over my romantic future? By afternoon, I found myself on Mom's porch, letting myself in with my key like I'd done thousands of times before. Marcus, what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be at school? Mom emerged from the kitchen wearing her hospital scrubs, clearly getting ready for her evening shift. She took one look at my face and immediately went into mother mode. What's wrong? You look terrible. I collapsed on her couch, surrounded by the familiar comfort of her plants and crystals and the faint scent of lavender that always made me feel safe. Elena and I had a fight, a big one. Mom sat beside me, her nurse instincts kicking in as she felt my forehead for fever. About what? About you. Her hand stilled. Me? She thinks our relationship is unhealthy. She says you're too involved in my life and that I'm too dependent on you. Mom was quiet for a long moment, processing. What do you think? I don't know. Maybe she has a point. Maybe I do lean on you too much. Marcus, look at me. Mom's voice was gentle but firm. Do you think our relationship is unhealthy? I thought about it honestly. Did I call my mom every day? Yes. Did I ask her opinion about important decisions? Yes. Did I enjoy spending time at her house? Absolutely. But did that make me unhealthy or immature? I paid my own bills, managed my own apartment, excelled at my job, maintained friendships and interests independent of my mother. I wasn't living in her basement playing video games. I was a functioning adult who happened to have a close relationship with his parent. No, I said finally. I don't think it's unhealthy. I think it's loving. Mom smiled, but there was sadness in her eyes. Elena's a smart, ambitious young woman. But son, if someone loves you, they don't ask you to choose between them and your family. They try to understand what makes you who you are. She paused, choosing her words carefully. Your relationship with me didn't happen in a vacuum. When your father left, it was just us against the world. We became a team. That doesn't mean you can't love other people or build your own life. It means you know what loyalty looks like. Elena says you're holding me back from success. What does success look like to you? I thought about my students. The shy kid who finally raised his hand in class. The struggling student who passed his first test. The class clown who turned out to have a genius-level understanding of calculus. I thought about the thank you notes from parents. The former students who stopped by to tell me they were majoring in math because of my class. Teaching, I said. Helping kids. Making a difference. Then you're already successful. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. We talked for another hour before Mom had to leave for work. As she gathered her things, she turned to me with a serious expression. Marcus, I need you to understand something. If Elena makes you happy, truly happy, then I want that for you. Even if it means seeing less of each other. Your happiness is more important to me than our Sunday dinners. Mom, let me finish. But don't ever let anyone make you ashamed of love. The way we care for each other isn't weakness, it's strength. And if someone can't see that, then they don't deserve you. That evening, I called Elena. I've been thinking about our fight, I told her. And I need you to understand something. My mother isn't going anywhere. She's family. If you can't accept that, then we need to end this now. Elena's voice was cold. So you're choosing her over me? I'm choosing not to choose. I'm asking you to accept that my mother is part of my life and always will be. That's not acceptable to me, Marcus. I need a partner who puts our relationship first. I am putting our relationship first by being honest about who I am. I love my mother. I respect her. And I enjoy her company. That doesn't diminish my feelings for you. Yes, it does. Every time you run to her for advice, it sends the message that my opinion doesn't matter. Every time you choose her house over mine, it shows where your priorities are. Elena, you're asking me to cut ties with my mother to prove my love for you. Do you realize how toxic that sounds? I'm asking you to grow up and act like a man instead of a mama's boy. The contempt in her voice was unmistakable. This wasn't a woman who was insecure about our relationship. This was someone who fundamentally disrespected the most important person in my life. Then I guess we're done, I said quietly. Marcus, wait. I hung up. Elena called back immediately. I let it go to voicemail. She called 5 more times that night, leaving increasingly desperate messages about how we could work this out and find a compromise. But there was no compromise to be found. Elena had drawn a line in the sand, her or my mother. She'd made it clear that loving my mom was, in her mind, a character flaw that needed to be corrected. I'd made my choice. The next few weeks were rough. Elena launched a campaign to win me back that included showing up at my school, sending flowers to my apartment, and even attempting to corner my mom at the grocery store. She'd apparently had some kind of revelation about being too hasty and wanting to work things out. But her approach revealed everything I needed to know about her character. Instead of apologizing for disrespecting my mother, she doubled down on her position while trying to manipulate me back into the relationship. The breaking point came when Elena showed up at my apartment with her friend Jessica as backup. Marcus, you're making a huge mistake, Jessica announced the moment I opened the door. Elena is a catch. You'll never find anyone better. Thanks for the input, but this isn't your business. Elena pushed past me into my living room. We need to talk. Alone. I reluctantly let them in, mostly because I wanted to end this drama once and for all. I've been thinking, Elena said, settling onto my couch like she belonged there. Maybe I was too harsh about your mother. I don't mind if you visit her sometimes. Sometimes. Once a month, maybe twice. And no more financial help. That has to stop. It's infantilizing. The audacity was breathtaking. She was offering to allow me limited contact with my mother, as if she were granting permission for a privilege instead of accepting a fundamental aspect of my life. Elena, you still don't get it. My mother isn't a problem to be managed. She's family. She's an obstacle to our future, but I'm willing to compromise. By dictating the terms of my relationship with my mother, Jessica jumped in. Marcus, be realistic. Elena has a great career. She's gorgeous. She's everything you could want in a partner. Your mom will always be your mom. But Elena might not wait around forever. Good. She shouldn't wait around. We're not compatible. Elena's face crumpled. How can you say that? We're perfect together. No, we're not. Perfect couples don't issue ultimatums about each other's families. I walked to the door and opened it. This conversation is over. Please leave. Elena started crying. Big, dramatic sobs that might have moved me 6 months earlier. But I'd seen how she treated my mother. I'd heard the contempt in her voice when she called Mom's spiritual practices witch stuff. I'd watched her dismiss my mother's kindness with cold indifference. Marcus, please, I love you. No, you don't. You love the idea of me, but you hate who I actually am. Someone who loves me wouldn't ask me to choose between them and my family. They left finally, but not before Elena delivered one last spiteful parting shot. Fine, go run back to your witch mother, but don't come crawling back to me when you realize you've thrown away your only chance at real love. The witch comment sealed it. Any lingering doubts I had about my decision evaporated. Elena wasn't just asking me to prioritize her over my mother. She actively despised the woman who'd raised me, and was comfortable expressing that hatred when she didn't get her way. I called Mom that evening and told her the relationship was over. How are you feeling about it? She asked. Relieved, mostly, and grateful. Grateful? For you. For teaching me what love actually looks like. Elena claimed to love me, but she wanted to change everything about me. You love me exactly as I am. Mom was quiet for a moment. You know, I pulled some cards after our fight last week. What did they say? That you were about to face a choice that would change your life, and that following your heart would lead to unexpected blessings. I laughed. Your witch cards were right. They usually are. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm after Elena's exit. I threw myself into work, started dating casually, and enjoyed my restored Sunday dinners with Mom. My colleagues noticed I seemed happier and more relaxed. My students definitely benefited from having a teacher who wasn't distracted by relationship drama. Mom never said, "I told you so," or badmouthed Elena. She just welcomed me back into our normal routine with her usual warmth and wisdom. We started taking weekend trips together, hiking in the Cascade Mountains, visiting the coast, exploring small towns with quirky antique shops and good coffee. About 3 months after the breakup, Mom started playing the lottery. Just for fun, she insisted when I teased her about it. It's only $1, and I like picking the numbers based on astrology. That's not how probability works, Mom. Maybe not, but it's fun to dream. She'd buy one ticket every week, always using the same numbers. Our birthdays, the date she bought her house, and what she called her intuition numbers, combinations that came to her during meditation. I thought it was harmless enough, if mathematically pointless. Then Mom called me at school on a Thursday afternoon in October, her voice strange and shaky. Marcus, can you come over after work? I need to show you something. Are you okay? You sound weird. I'm fine. Just come over, as soon as you can. The drive to Mom's house felt endless. She'd sounded genuinely shaken, which was unusual for someone as calm and centered as my mother. I ran through possibilities in my head. Health problems, work issues, family emergencies. I found her sitting at her kitchen table, staring at a piece of paper with an expression I'd never seen before. Mom, what's wrong? She looked up at me with wide, disbelieving eyes. Marcus, I won the lottery. I laughed. Very funny. What's really going on? I'm serious. She slid the paper across the table. It was a lottery ticket, along with a printout from the Oregon Lottery website showing the winning numbers. Every single number matched. This is real? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. I've checked it 17 times. Called the lottery office twice. It's real. How much? After taxes? About $2.3 million. I sat down hard in the nearest chair. Jesus Christ, Mom. Language? She said automatically, then started laughing. Oh my God, Marcus. What do we do now? The next few weeks were a whirlwind of lawyers, financial advisors, and media attention. Mom handled it all with her typical grace, making smart decisions about investments and tax strategies. She bought herself a modest new car, nothing flashy, and set aside money for a comfortable retirement. But the first thing she did, before anything else, was write me a check. For your student loans, she said, pressing it into my hands. All of them. You're free. I stared at the check. $47,000 exactly. The precise amount I owed. Mom, I can't take this much money from you. You're not taking it. I'm giving it. Do you know how many extra shifts I worked worrying about your debt? How many nights I stayed awake hoping you'd be able to build the life you wanted without that burden? Tears were streaming down my face. This is too much. Marcus, listen to me. Money is just energy. It flows where it's needed. And this money needs to flow to you, so you can focus on teaching instead of worrying about bills. What if Elena finds out? She'll think, Elena can think whatever she wants. She's not part of our family anymore. Mom was right. Within a week of the news hitting our small town, Elena was back. I was grading papers at my kitchen table on a Sunday evening when I heard the familiar sound of her key trying to work in my lock. I'd forgotten she still had a copy. When that didn't work, she started pounding on the door. Marcus! Open up! I know you're in there. I looked through the peephole. Elena stood there with flowers, dressed in the blue dress I used to love, looking like she'd spent hours on her hair and makeup. I didn't open the door. What do you want, Elena? I want to talk! About us. About how we can work things out. There's nothing to work out. We're done. Come on, don't be like this. I heard about your mom's lottery win. That's amazing. I'm so happy for you guys. The transparent opportunism was almost insulting. Elena had spent months calling my mother a manipulative witch, but now that Mom had money, she was suddenly happy for us. Go home, Elena. We have nothing to discuss. Marcus, please. I made a mistake. I was jealous and insecure, but I've grown. I understand now how important your mother is to you. I almost laughed. You understand now that she's a millionaire? That's not fair. I've been thinking about us for months. I miss you. I miss what we had. What we had was you constantly criticizing my mother and demanding I choose between you. That hasn't changed. Yes, it has. I want to apologize to her. I want to make things right. Through the door, I could hear her starting to cry. 6 months ago, those tears might have moved me. Now they just sounded manipulative. Elena, go home. Find someone who shares your values. Leave me and my family alone. The crying turned to anger. You're going to regret this, Marcus. When you realize that money doesn't buy happiness, you're going to wish you had someone who loved you for you. Someone who loved me for me wouldn't have asked me to choose. She kicked my door before leaving, probably leaving a mark. Classy to the end. I called Mom to tell her about the visit. She'll probably try to contact you too, I warned. Let her try. I have some things I'd like to say to that girl. Mom's tone was cheerful, but there was steel underneath. Elena had no idea what she was walking into. 2 days later, Mom called me at work, laughing so hard she could barely speak. Marcus, you need to come over after school. Elena just left, and you're going to want to hear this story. I found Mom on her porch, still chuckling, holding a cup of tea with hands that shook slightly from suppressed laughter. Tell me everything. Well, she showed up about an hour ago with a huge bouquet of flowers and this long speech about how sorry she was and how she'd misjudged me and wanted to make amends. And I let her finish. Very polite, very contrite. She talked about how she'd been jealous of our relationship and realized now that family was important and she wanted to be part of our lives again. What did you say? Mom's grin was wicked. I said, well, Elena, I appreciate you stopping by, but I'm afraid the witch says no. I burst out laughing. You didn't. I absolutely did. You should have seen her face. She went from hopeful to confused to absolutely furious in about 3 seconds. What happened next? She started yelling about how I'd poisoned you against her and how we were both going to end up miserable and alone. Really showed her true colors. Then what? I told her she was absolutely right about one thing. I am a witch. And as a witch, I can sense people's true intentions. Hers are rotten. Mom paused to sip her tea, clearly savoring the memory. Then I said that my cards had predicted she'd come back when she heard about the money, and that they'd also predicted she'd leave empty-handed and bitter. I thanked her for proving my tarot reading was accurate. She bought that? Oh, she was furious. Started ranting about superstitious nonsense and how we deserved each other. So I smiled and said, the spirits agree. Now please leave my property before I have to call the police. And she left? After threatening to sue us for emotional distress and calling us both pathetic. Really committed to that gracious apology, that girl. We sat on the porch laughing until our sides hurt. The whole situation was so absurd. Elena's transparent attempt at reconciliation, her fury when it didn't work, Mom's perfect comeback. I'm proud of you, Mom said when we'd caught our breath. 6 months ago, you might have felt guilty about turning her away. She was right. 6 months ago, I might have been swayed by Elena's tears and apologies. I might have wondered if I was being too harsh, if I should give her another chance. But that was before I'd seen how much happier and more peaceful my life was, without someone constantly criticizing the people I loved. Before I'd remembered what it felt like to make decisions based on my own values instead of someone else's expectations. The money didn't change anything, I said. It just revealed what was already true. Exactly. Elena didn't want you. She wanted access to what she thought you could provide. When that changed, she came running back. Do you think she'll try again? Probably not. I may have mentioned that I'd already consulted my cards about her, and they suggested some very unpleasant karma headed her way if she kept bothering us. I raised an eyebrow. Did you really pull cards about Elena? Mom's smile was mysterious. What do you think? That winter, I used part of my student loan freedom to take a sabbatical and travel with Mom. We spent 3 weeks in Ireland, exploring ancient sites and Celtic spiritual traditions. Mom was like a kid in a candy store, buying crystals and learning about traditional herbalism from local practitioners. We hiked through mystical landscapes, stayed in cozy bed and breakfasts, and had long conversations about life, love, and what really matters. Some of the best weeks of my life. When we got back, I moved into a bigger apartment. Nothing extravagant, but with an extra bedroom so Mom could stay over when she wanted. She helped me decorate, naturally gravitating toward plants and crystals that made the space feel warm and welcoming. Elena's prediction about ending up alone with my mother was starting to look pretty appealing. I'm still teaching, still loving my job, still debt-free thanks to my witch mother's lottery win. I've started dating again, women who appreciate my close family relationships instead of seeing them as competition. Last month, I met Sarah at a bookstore. She's a librarian who actually asked to meet my mother on our third date. They spent 2 hours discussing herbal remedies and astrology while I made dinner. When I walked them to the car, Sarah whispered, "Your mom is amazing. I can see where you get your kindness." That's what love looks like. Someone who wants to understand your world instead of change it. Elena, from what I hear through the grapevine, is still single and still bitter. Apparently, she tells anyone who'll listen about how I chose money over love and how my mother is a manipulative witch who ruined her life. Every time someone tells me about her latest rant, I smile and think about Mom's perfect comeback. The witch says no. Some choices are easy when you know what really matters. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way.